Hello everyone, and welcome back to my little series here on Ultramoon RNG manipulation. I wanted to start out again by saying this is for Gen 7, so this will work for Sun, Moon, Ultrasun, and Ultramoon. Even though I'm playing on Ultramoon, you can still get this. The exact same methods will work. Some things are slightly different, but I'll go over those. The important thing to know is that you can do this. It's very easy once you get everything all set up. So we're going to do the starter RNG this time. Starters are they're a subset essentially. There's stationary RNG. There's in-game gifts. Those are all kind of following the exact same method, but starters are a little bit different in that, there's a whole lot of build up to them and you don't have any other Pokemon, so some things you'll need to know. You'll need to know your trainer shiny value, your TSV, which if you manipulated your ID like you did like I showed you in the last video, you should be able to know that already. But if you don't, you're going to have to find some way to do it, which if you have these RNG tools, you can just find a random Pokemon. You can even get a starter and find out what your TSV is. I have kind of expanded my windows a little bit here so you can see all of them. And so right here, we have a view. It allows you to see your party Pokemon as well as wild, which is going to be super useful, trust me. Very useful when you're actually doing wild RNG. And then over here you have your initial seed, your current seed, current seed is less important than initial seed, but it gives you a good idea to make sure you're not messing anything up. And then frame, which is probably the most important thing of all. I'm going to update this right now. Okay, so here we have our initial seed for this particular session. Again, seeds are tied to your time. So we are going to do some RNG here. So bringing this up, just so that you can see this again. This was the ID we generated last time. So we have our Gen 7 TID, which we know is right. We double-checked that last video. We have our TID, our SID, not super important, but your trainer shiny value, which is important. So you see I've gone and populated up here, so that this way the tool knows anything. If the TSV matches, it'll display it correctly as shiny. I put the TRV here so that it can be square shiny, but now we're done with this. So first things first, you're going to want to go to Stationary Legendary. And we're going to set everything to its defaults. This is this button right here, if you click it, everything goes to its default. So you're going to be doing, you see there's a whole bunch of stationaries, and Ultramoon, especially because of the wormholes, you can get a lot of legendaries, but you can go to starters. And then you choose whichever starter you want. The delay is roughly the same for all of them, but it's good to know. I'm going to be picking a Rowlet, but you can do this for any of them. Now, this section over here is important. So this defines how many frames you're willing to go. Like right now, the default is just 50,000 frames, which is quite a bit. Your target frame, you can set your target so you can kind of see how your delay is, if you're hitting the correct frame or not. And considered delay, you always want to have considered delay checked, because the tool, people have been spending time on this and they know that it takes about 20 frames plus another 4 to actually generate the Pokemon from the final screen. So if you don't include that delay, you won't get the right target. So include that, especially because you can adjust it up and down, as you can see, and sometimes you might need to do that. Number of NPCs. This is an important value. The way frames work in Ultramoon, Ultrasun, Sun, and Moon, and on all Gen 7 games, is each advancement increases your frame by 1. However, the number of NPCs you have on the screen, and in this case NPCs are interactable objects essentially, or just some objects in general, will make each frame advancement go up by an additional 1. Now, some of the times they blink, sometimes they move, and that changes things around. But if you don't have an accurate count of the number of NPCs, that will create a whole lot of problems, and it won't allow you to hit the frames you want. And the most important thing is, well, you got this all. You go, just click shiny, and we'll see where the shiny frames are. Okay, great. I wouldn't do this, just because you're going to have to create a timeline. I'm going to get into that when we get a little further on. But don't just go off of this, because you might not be able to hit all these frames. Especially since it takes a long time to actually get your starter. But this window here allows you to set parameters. You can, like in this case, the default is just look for any hidden power, any nature, any frame with any stats. And then you could, of course, narrow it down. You know, okay, I want one perfect IV. Okay, here's all the perfect. I want one perfect IV that's shiny. Well, there's nothing in the first 50,000 frames. You don't have a shiny charm. It's going to be hard. So just keep that in mind. Anyways, we've got kind of our introduction to this tool. It's very important. This window here goes a little bit more into detail. These can't be synced. The starters can't be synced. Some cannot be synced. Some are always synced. And this has information just based off of how it is. You can see the gender ratio. You can see that it's not a 3 IV. So the legendaries and wormholes and special encounters, some of them always come with 3 perfect IVs, so this lets the tool know. Shiny locked, can it be shiny? If this is checked, you're never going to find a shiny frame. Ability locked as well. And then raining is important because rain really messes with your frame count and is not fun. But sometimes you have to be in a rainy area. Alright, let's get into this. We have everything populated. I already put the initial seed into the tool. And now we gotta go through our whole cutscene here. So, there is a final frame before a Pokemon is actually generated. So we're gonna get to that final frame, and I'm gonna speed up our emulation here. Just so we can get there a little faster. Because there is, like I said, there's a ton of talking. We have to go through this whole spiel. This is on the Ultra Moon version, and remember, Ultra Sun, Sun and Moon, they do things differently. So you don't get your starter until much later. But also, there's no patch of grass here. So we go through. All right, here we are. We're almost to the point that we care about. All right, yeah, one of these will be your partner. So, picking your Pokemon here doesn't actually lock things in. We're still going to go with Rowlet. And you think, oh, okay, checking yes is where I get the Pokemon. Nope, that's not actually true. It happens a little bit later. So we're going to wait. We have to go through this whole scene where you pick it up and look at it, and it gets all happy. And the reason I went with Rowlet is because I really, really love that shiny owl. It's great. Alright, so here we are. This here is the final screen for Ultra Moon. You see the arrow appeared? If you hit A now, this is when it will actually generate the Pokemon. So you don't want to hit A, you want to stop here. For Sun Moon, the final screen is different, so I'm going to put that on the screen right now. And you can see that. So this is the final screen for Sun and Moon. After that screen is when the Pokemon gets generated. Otherwise, everything is exactly the same. You can follow the exact same steps. Alright, so now we're going to pause our emulation here, because we don't want to keep advancing. And we're going to bring up our tool again. So, we need to create a timeline. What's a timeline? Well, because of the number of NPCs and because of blinking and a whole bunch of other things that are way too complicated to go into, you need to actually know what frames you're able to reach consistently. And so we create a timeline in order to guarantee we can hit those frames. So that's also where NPCs come into play, because if your NPC count is off, your timeline will be off. So we've got our frame. And I'm gonna, sometimes this tool freezes up on me, so I want to make sure that I'm right. So we'll put in what frame we're at right now, and since there's one NPC, we'll go for safe frames. For starters, it's always going to be one NPC. Some areas will only have 0 NPCs. These areas are really great, and we'll go into that when we get into wild RNG. But we want to find our safe frames. Those are frames that are at the correct NPC count, essentially. And you can see that we actually are at a safe frame right now. But I'm going to advance just a little bit. Yeah, you see 88, not a safe frame. So the next one is at 642. So we'll get to 642. So yeah, this is very different from the ID RNG because the frames are actually advancing and can kind of be controlled a little bit. Alright, so 10656, 10656, everything matches. We're going to set that as our starting frame up here. And now we can clear out that and create a timeline. So all you have to do is just click the Create Timeline button, leave this default, ignore Timeline Leap. That is a very powerful tool, but we'll go into that one later. This is not a great spot for it. And then hit Calculate. And now you can have your timeline. So you see, you're starting out this frame, the next advancement will get to this frame, and so on and so forth. So let's actually test it out a little bit to make sure that our timeline is correct. Because if your NPCs are off again, that'll cause problems. So we'll do a couple advancements, and we go to 10658, which is right, 60, 62. Alright, pretty sure we're on the right timeline. So now we can actually search for what we want. So if we just click our shiny only frame, here we see where some shiny frames are that we can hit based off our timeline. And we have our stats over here. We find its nature, what hidden power type it will have. PSV is kind of moot in this case because we want it to match, we want it to be shiny. And an ability, which again, for starters, isn't super important since it only has the one ability. Can kind of ignore the delay. This random number actually correlates to the current seed, but you don't really have to care about that. I wouldn't. So let's find something we want. Well, this one is pretty nice. It's a little far away, but we can advance to it. So I think we'll go with that. I'm going to right-click it and set it as our target frame. And now, if you recalculate, you see that the Shift/F. This is for Eon Timer, but you can also kind of use it to keep track of things. All right, it goes to 0. So this is our target. We want to get to 71385. So all you have to do is just start up your game again and advance to that exact frame. So we're going to go ahead and speed things up a little bit. And yeah, I'm speeding things up, and I'll fast forward this. I'll cut to when we actually hit the frame so you guys don't have to sit here and wait. Normally this would take 21 minutes if you just did it at normal speed. Even with me doing it at about 3 times the speed, it'll still take a little while. So we'll just chill, and I'll come back to you when we're all ready. Okay, here we are. We're finally back. It took quite a while to get there, but we're pretty much there. We just have a couple more advancements left. So here you go. We just advance. 71385 matches there, matches there. We're all good. All right. So at this point, I'm going to hide my window, my 3DS, my RNG tool window here, and we're going to actually generate the Pokemon. So all you have to do is hold A and advance. And at this point, you've already accepted A and everything, so just continue on. All right. So first off, we're pretty sure we hit the right frame, because that is a shiny Rowlet. If you're not familiar with, you can go through the rest of the thing. Right now, the stats aren't showing up because we haven't actually added them to our party yet. So we have Birb here. Hi, Birb. And also, another reason I chose this frame is because it's female, which is really cool. It's fairly rare. All right, so we say okay. And Birb has been added to your party. Now we can go over here. We select party 1 because this is the first member of our party. We can update, and you can see right here. Oh, let me make this window a tiny bit bigger here. Hopefully that doesn't throw things off too much. We're good. We're good. So you can see here, Rowlet, female, Jolly, Overgrow. Here, let me bring up this window again so you can see it. But yeah, you can see that our target frame here has 31 IVs here, 30 IVs here, 8, 6, 9, 22, Jolly Nature, and of course it's shiny because the Pokemon shiny value matches the trainer shiny value. So we're good. We got exactly what we wanted. Now, what happens if you don't hit your frame? What happens if you were to... You go through all this and then you go and you check your timeline and... I'm going to bring it up and we go... And we see, for instance, that we got these stats. We got the 4, 31, 30, whatever, and it's not shiny. Well, then you can just adjust your delay. You go over here and you see -2. Well, it goes in... This goes in even numbers, basically. It goes in 2s. So you just hit that, -2, recalculate it, and then you have a couple of options. I'm trying to get back to this frame here. So you have a couple of options. If this is on a 3DS, well, you'll just have to try a different frame, essentially. But if you have a save state, just go back, and now this is your new frame. This is the one you want to hit. Instead of 385, you want to hit 387. So on and so forth. So you can use that to kind of calibrate your delay and figure it out that way. So that's at least what you're trying to do. If you miss your delay and you're on a 3DS, just restart the game and go ahead and do it again. The delay will usually be pretty consistent, and on an actual 3DS, there will be some delay just because of the hardware. But on an emulator, on Citra, you can of course use save states to kind of manipulate things to your advantage. But here we are. We got our shiny bird, and boy, it's a good one. And now we can just proceed on. But that is everything you need to know about getting a starter. And if you're doing stationary Pokemon, it is roughly the same way. You're following the exact same process. You will get to the final frame before you actually start the battle. Or get the gift or whatever. You get to the final screen. You create your timeline based off the number of NPCs in the area. You advance to your frame and then press A. And that's all you have to do. But I figured we'd show you shinies, and I can show you a couple examples of like in-game stationaries later on. Also, in cutscenes, your Pokemon will never show up shiny. We're gonna save our game here because now we got our shiny bird, and next time we're gonna go into actual wild Pokemon and how to get those with the stats and shininess that you want. We'll go into that. There's a whole lot more to do. There's also SOS RNG, there's fishing RNG, there's breeding RNG, and there's timeline leaps, which are really useful when it comes to legendaries. So we'll get into more, so stick around. Thank you for watching. I hope you're enjoying this. I hope it's giving you some new knowledge. But I will see you all next time.